again. Stay where it all began. The light in your eyes when you're near. Everything feels so clear. The feeling I have in my chest. I never felt like this. I can't explain this kind of love. It's more than enough. Take my hand, stay with me, like it was, like it used to be. No fear, no need to hide. Stay with me, right by my side. Let's walk where the river runs slow, where we don't have to know. No night, no shadows in sight. Everything feels so right, the way you look at me now. I don't know how, I don't know how. I can't explain this kind of love. It's more than enough. Take my hand, stay with me, like it was, like it used to be. No fear, no need to hide. Stay with me, right by my side. Before we knew, before we fell, before we had a word for farewell, we had a place we called paradise, and I still feel it in your eyes. Take my hand, stay with me, like it was, like it used to be. No fear, no need to hide. Stay with me, right by my side.
Well, hello. Welcome everyone. I didn't plan on doing this. I don't have any time to be doing this stuff. But Pastor Morgan recently released a video talking about basically giving a response to some individuals that some of you may be familiar with, Ryan Day and Mike Colburn, talking about the seventh day. And why doesn't the seventh day have the description of evening and morning? And this question has never really been a question. Like it's a literal non-issue. But as people become more and more aware that we are not keeping the Sabbath as commanded, as it was intended in God's image in creation, to subdue the earth and have dominion as his representatives on earth. People get really creative trying to wiggle themselves out of it. And this is one of those things. And so the only reason why the only reason why I'm mentioning this, that I decided to take a little bit of time. I'm not going to do the 3-hour thing. I know I keep saying that. It's because this is actually the topic that brought me onto YouTube in the first place. So before we get into it, I'm going to give you an overview. Then I'm going to give you Pastor Morgan's introductory of the video with Ryan Day. And then we're going to go into like what I can find, the original snippets that I had with Miles Kettleson and Sam Shamoon, basically arguing the same nonsense. So without further ado, let's pull this up here. If you can see this on the screen, what I've done is I created the slide to show that there's a direct pattern that's going on in creation. So I want to prime you, for those who are listening, with where we're going, because what I'm about to share with you is not something you can easily look up. It's not something you can just Google. You have to truly study either in classic Hebrew understanding or the Jewish thought, or maybe even get a theology degree. Like what I'm about to share isn't just obvious. This isn't just like a. So I'm being gentle. I'm trying to be as gentle as I can on this. But if you come on like Ryan Day, right, or Mike Colburn, or Sam Shamoon, right, or Miles Kettleson, and you pretend like Miles does this like fake humility thing. You pretend that you have some level of teaching acumen when you actually don't. Then 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 I would expect you to know this. I would expect you to see and come to this conclusion, or make this observation. But they don't. And it's not just them. It's basically any evangelical group who's trying to do away with the Sabbath, trying to find any nook and cranny to say, ah, well, then the Sabbath doesn't exist. And when you do that, you start ignoring the clear patterns laid out in the Bible that shows that God has separated things for his purpose, and that he wants this separation effectively to come together into a union. And so this is a pattern throughout the entire Bible. We see Moses establishing the nation of Israel that is to be set apart from the rest of the world. But the whole point of that was for that they can come back into atonement, to be at one with God. So the separation and then becoming together as one has always been the pattern from the beginning. And we see the Bible start out exactly in this way. We see that the first day we have the light and the darkness. The second day we have the heaven and the earth. The third day we have the land and the sea, right? The fourth day you have the lights in the heaven, right? With the divide the day and the night, right? This is the evening and morning concept. So, right? You couldn't really have an evening and morning until the sun was created, right? So these things. So there was an evening and morning before there was an evening and morning. So God was establishing this pattern. He was showing the divide of how creation was coming into being, right? And then you finally come to the sixth day. So the last and final day of work, he's making his image bearers, the people he created to represent him on earth, to also create like him, right? To subdue the earth, to multiply like him. And on the seventh day, we see complete union, completion. A day is now a day. It is not a evening and a morning, right? It is not just man and woman. Man and woman are now flesh. You see, so this is the pattern we see. We see the separation of things that are coming together and then come together in full atonement at one mint with God. And that's why when the fall happens, it creates that separation again that was never intended. And now we're going through this whole thousands of years of rigmarole to finally be put back into place to be in full union again. That's the whole biblical narrative. That's it. And so when you come to the seventh day and you make an argument that it doesn't say evening and morning, and you try to extrapolate some reason to get rid of the Sabbath, you miss the whole point. You miss exactly what the Bible's trying to tell you. The seventh day was perfect completion. We goofed that up. God's going to restore us to that perfect completion someday. So it's not stating that there is no day anymore. Of course, right? We do know that the day continued after the seventh day, that they were put to work to subdue the earth and to multiply. So how is it that we are going to make the argument that the Sabbath is done away with when the entire week was described 6 days of work and then the seventh you rest? Now you're in my image. Go multiply, be fruitful, and move on. So that's the whole thing in a nutshell. And that might seem obvious now that I said it, but I promise you this theological concept, although I just said it, and I probably like, oh yeah, no duh, Matt. You're not saying anything revolutionary. I promise you, it's not something you can easily find. It's not. And you know what? Maybe this is why Christianity is so superficial. Because we've lost touch to why Moses, the guy who brought us the book of Genesis and Exodus, right? The five, the patriarchs, why Moses attached Exodus to the Genesis story, right? So the knowledge of Genesis was the prerequisites to understand why Exodus coming out of Egypt was necessary. That's the whole point. Like, it was the prequel. It was the prequel, right? So Exodus is the actual movie. And then, and to justify the actual movie, you had to have a prequel. That's what Genesis was. So it's a summary of all the human history from the beginning of time, right? According to inspiration given to Moses by God to justify why they had to come out of Egypt. Guys, so that means what Moses is telling you on the first 7 days is to exemplify the point that he's trying to drive home to get to the promised land. The promised land physically meant Israel, but spiritually it means when Christ returns to bring us home, right? The new creation, new heaven and new earth. And so let's go to the video real quick. Now that we went to that, this is see, I just had it open. Let's see if it works. Share it. That might be helpful. Okay, I'll make it big and we'll hit the play button. And we're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want to get through the Ryan Day and the Mike Colburn part, and then you'll see what's going on here.
Response to Was the Sabbath in Eden? With Pastor Kevin Morgan.
Before I'd even had a chance to watch Ryan Day and Mike Colburn's presentation about the Sabbath in the Garden of Eden, I recorded a message that I was going to upload, and it seems that I actually answered a lot of the things that they pointed out.
I read. So Ryan, what does it say?
Does Pastor Morgan say what I'm about to say? No. Like I said, I almost, it is almost impossible to find what I've already shared. And so I'm going to go through that. And that's why I'm trying to be gentle with Ryan Day and Mike Colbert, because it's not just these people. But again, I think the reason why it's not shared is because it was never really questioned before. So it wasn't like something theologically people had to dwell on. No, it turned out to be like a question that somebody wrote their PhD thesis on. It's one of these like, oh, that's a neat little literary trick thing. And why does it say that? And, these, geniuses of theology are going to argue over it. It has no meaning. But now you have these laymen, right, coming in, and they're trying to effectively justify getting rid of something God has sanctified, set apart, so that we can emulate him in his image because of a language, because of the twist, while the twist actually is telling you God's intention. God, yes, it does point to God's eternal rest. Yes, God's not creating anymore, but that's the beginning of our duties as his image bearers. So it's the end of his creative work. And then now we bear his image by his example that he set. It's not either or. It's not, oh, God stopped working, so therefore we are not working. So the Edenic command that he told us, subdue the earth and multiply and have dominion over it in his image, was only on the 6th day. It wasn't on the first day of mankind. Like it's a ridiculous point when Moses, we know, is trying to drive home the 7-day cycle. Like, guys, it's the same author trying to justify why there's a 7-day cycle, and he's pointing directly to creation.
Yeah, it says, thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. And on the 7th day, God finished the work that he had done. And he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation.
So what are your like observations of what the text does say?
Okay, so first of all, where it says he blessed the 7th day and he hallowed it. What's interesting about the word hallowed is a lot of people don't process what that means. It means sanctified. It means set apart. And so if you're not aware what sanctified means, like I'm not talking about like theologically, I'm talking about literally. So like if the government says it's been sanctioned, right? This has been sanctioned, set apart. It means there's a legal decree. It is law There is a separation by law. So when it says, bless the seventh day and hallowed it, it's saying that there's a law being established here. That's what sanctified means. It's telling you that is the command. Now, this is additive to the point I'm trying to get at, but I can't express how many Christians I have had to tell this to. Sanctify literally is a command. It is a literal command. By definition, to sanction something, to sanctified is literal decree of separation. It is a law of separation. That's the literal. So when they say, oh, where's the command in Genesis? Hallowed. I know that doesn't function in your modern brain, people. Hallowed is that's what it means. It means by literal decree, by law, that something is set apart by law. So when anybody asks you, where's the command for the Sabbath in creation? It's right there. It's sanctioned, hallowed, sanctify. All right, so let's keep going here.
And what does it not say?
Well, I do find it interesting that, this is obviously an extension of what we just read in Genesis 1, which is the actual creation account.
Yep.
And I find it interesting that before and beyond this point regarding the seventh day itself, it's very different in the sense that on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and day 6, each one of those days, it ends with in the evening and the morning was the first day, the evening and the morning was the second day, the evening and the morning was the third day, so forth and so on, all the way down to day 6. But when you get to day 7, that language is not there. The evening and the morning was the seventh day. It's not there.
So, yeah, it's not rocket science. But fortunately, if it was rocket science, if you don't know, I am an aerospace engineer by training. That is what I went to school for. But and I worked as an aerospace engineer briefly until I decided it was not for me. It was too many government regulations. But no, it's not rocket science. But I guess what frustrates me is the pain. Like, you're actually missing the narrative of the Bible by trying to justify the Sabbath is done away with by pretending as if the day did not end. Guys, the day was made for us. All the days, right? The earth, the whole creation narrative was for our benefit. The whole creation narrative. Like the reason why God is describing the way creation's coming together is for our benefit. So when he says the seventh day, we know what the seventh day is. He described it 6 days before it was made. Like, if I say a day, I don't have to say there's 24 hours in this 24-hour period. In this 24-hour period. No, if I say the 24-hour period is a day, okay, how many times I'm going to tell you that a 24-hour period is a day? How many times I'm going to tell you? 6 times? Okay, great. Now that we've moved on from how we got to what a day means, I'm just going to say a day now, because now everything's completed. That's exactly what's happening in the literature here. He's describing how things are created. Here are all the parts. And on the seventh day, it's completed. So you have a man and you have a woman, and they were separate. And now they're one flesh. Okay, so they were separate, and then they're now one flesh. Okay, so now they're one. Okay, you have the light and the dark. You have the evening and the morning. They were separate, and now they're all one. This is the day. This is the point of the seventh day. The seventh day is all of creation and all the parts that they were is now at one with God, atonement, at one with God. It's one. It's completeness. That's what 7 is. And then seven completeness is not just a Christian or Jewish idea. The idea of the 7 as completeness is found throughout all sorts of religious structures in the world. So it's not just this Christian idea. It's like a religious fact across multiple major religions for thousands of years. The number of 7 is the number of completion, and thus the day is complete as a day as described previously. That's the literature here. That's what it's building up to. It's not saying, oh, well, the day actually didn't end. Of course the day ended. God just created a whole universal system to describe the passing time. So we know what a passing time is now, that man's going to go to work on man's first day, not God's first day. God's first day was setting up creation, all of the universe. Man's first day, right after the 7th day, his first day of the week, is going to get to work on the dominion command that he was given previously. So let's keep going here. Yeah, it is.
And I believe there's a reason for that.
Argument for silence.
So I noticed that automatically, different than the other 6 days. That language is not present as a demarcation of time, ending or coming to an end, as you see those previous 6 days do.
Yeah, but that's what a day is. We know that a day has an end. We know by definition that a day has an end. You know, my wife is funny. My wife is funny because she'll say this. You know, if I was a teacher, this is what my wife would say. Let me put her on the spot. Let me put her on the spot. My wife would say this. If I was a teacher, God's a teacher. If I was a teacher, and then I told you that a day was evening and morning, and I told you this over and over again, and then I said, pop quiz, everyone. I say a day. What does a day consist of? And then what would Ryan Day, this is ironic, his last name's Day. What would Ryan Day and Mike Colburn's answer be? I don't know. I don't know what a day is because you didn't say anything else. What do you mean by day? How many times did God have to tell you while he was creating everything what constitutes as a day, man? He's literally telling you what a week is. A week constitutes 6 days of creative labor in which you're bearing God's image to represent him in creation. And on the 7th day, you set apart for the Lord because it is his creation work that is greater than our own. That we remember that everything we do bearing his image is because of him and for him alone. That's the whole point. The Sabbath means completeness. So when we come into the Sabbath, it's representing our original Edenic understanding that was passed down to us from Moses by inspiration from Adam and Eve. The whole Edenic command. The same reason why we justify marriage, it's the same reason why we justify Sabbath. If you accept marriage, you have to accept Sabbath. Ryan Day. Yeah. Oh no, I promised I was going to take it easy on them today. I'm going to try not to be sarcastic, but yeah, Ryan is still ongoing. Ryan has no end. That is funny.
Also, I just want to highlight, and I made some notes over here, and I'll just put these right here in front of me. You'll notice here that it says that he rested, and this is where a lot of again, this is for years. Me as the Seventh-day Adventist, when you read this and it says that, he done 3 things. This is where the Adventist is going to highlight that there's 3 things done here that is not done to any of the other previous 6 days, right? And that is that he rested, he blessed, and he sanctified or made holy this day. Mm-hmm. That word rested there.
Okay, I know where Ryan Day is going on with this. He's going to try to say that the noun and the verb are different things. Let me give you an example. If I throw something, if I'm throwing, so this is the verb, I'm throwing. In order to do the thing, then the thing has to exist. If I'm running, to run exists. If I'm doing the thing for the first time, then the thing of which you do exists because it's being done. Guys, if you're doing it, then it exists. You can't say it's a verb and therefore not a noun. No, if God's literally doing the Sabbath, He is then creating it. Exactly. Like that's how he was separating it, because it's no more creation work. So he's doing the Sabbath, and therefore it becomes the Sabbath, which we do every 7 days to represent his image. It's like, but to make the argument that if it's a verb, therefore it can't be a noun is absolutely ironic. Like ironic. It's idiotic. It's not ironic. It's idiotic. It's like, guys, if you're doing the thing, then the thing must exist because you're doing it. It's like, what are you doing, guys?
It's very, very interesting because we just read from Ellen White, Mike. We just read from her, and it also is stated in the SDA fundamental.
I have no idea what they're talking about with Ellen White, nor do I care. But you notice how he's saying rested and blessed. Yeah, let's talk about sanctified. Sanctified, hallowed. Sanctified is the command. Sanctified is the literal command to sanction, to set apart by law decree.
Belief that the Sabbath, the holy day, right, that we find that we're going to get when we get to the Decalogue in just a few moments, the Sabbath day as issued there in the Decalogue, they say was instituted right here in Genesis, in creation week. And again, we have to ask the question, well, where are the texts?
It's right here. He actually, look, he actually squared, he put a square around it. It's literally right there. That's, watch this. Hallowed is sanctified, by the way. Watch this. What is, okay, so a fresh ChatGPT, right? No chat. What is the literal, we're going to say secular, because, we all have our own theological ideas. Secular definition of I was going to say sanction. Sanctified. We'll just say that. I'll say that. I was going to say sanction, but made legitimate, approved, authorized, accepted, or treated as worthy of special respect. Practice, sanctified by tradition. The law sanctified the arrangement. The version of events has been sanctified by his given official approval, legitimacy, or special status. What about as a legal decree or law? The legal context sanctify is not usually a technical legal term, but when used in relation to a decree or law, legal authority, it generally means formally ratified, validated, authorized, endowed with recognition, legitimacy by a competent authority. I don't know any more competent authority than the creator of the universe. Historically, the word derives from the Latin to make sacred. Because of that history, legal uses often carry a sense not just of approval, but being placed beyond ordinary dispute. It is, you see that? Being placed beyond dispute. You don't question this. You don't touch it. That's what that means, guys. That's the literal command. Adventists say Sabbath was instituted at creation. Yeah, correct. Reformers said the same thing. Like everybody, this was never questioned. This was never questioned, man. The treaty was sanctified by royal decree. The custom was sanctified in law. The Constitution sanctifies certain rights. Very literal secular legal rendering would be to confer recognized authority, validity, protected status through an official act. Look, I'm not even bringing up religion here, right? I'm just saying, like, what does this actual word mean? What does it literally mean? If we take our theological bias out of this, what does sanctified mean? It means it's protected status through an official act. Did God not give the seventh day a protected status by his official act? Yes or no? Yes, we know this. And that's why Exodus 20, verse 11, literally repeats what happened in Genesis 2, verse 3. Literally, it's literally saying, hey guys, you're doing your weekly schedule because of the thing that I told you in Genesis 2. That's what Moses is saying. This is why we have a 7-day cycle, because God had a 7-day week. He had his own 7-day week. Thus, we will have our own 7-day week. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Oh yeah, this is not to correct you. You're thinking about Romans 14. Romans 14. Not Colossians 2:16 is talking about ordinances. Romans 14 is talking about disputable matters. I'm just saying. You're not wrong. I just want to give you a hard time. Lambert, good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a while. I'm hoping this video will be super quick here. I want to get through this. Let's keep going.
That clearly show forth that this is an institution of the Sabbath as a noun. In other words, when you go to Exodus chapter 20, and I know, Mike, you're going to probably expound on this in just a moment. When you go to Exodus chapter 20, which we're going to go to in just a few moments, and you read that word that remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, it's the noun Shabbat in the Hebrew language, in the Hebrew language. But right here, the word or the noun Shabbat does not appear. It's actually the verb. It's a verb. It's not a noun.
Correct. God was literally doing the thing. That's why it says it's a verb, and then he sanctified it. So he did the thing, and he is sanctified by an official act of his authority. Correct. The guys, I'm trying to be nice here, because we're not even talking about theology. We're talking about basic words with basic meanings. When you are verbing, if you are verbing the thing, then the thing exists. If I'm verbing it, then I'm doing the verb. I'm doing it. That's what a verb is. It can't not exist if I'm actually doing it. If I am running, then to run exists. If I am Sabbathing, if I'm ceasing from my creation work, then the Sabbath exists, because as I'm Sabbathing, so the Sabbath exists. If I'm throwing, then to throw exists. Like if you do the thing, then the thing exists. And it clearly says, and you got it squared. You got it in a little square here. That means it was set apart by his official act, by his competent authority. But what he is doing is not to be ignored, but to be honored and protected. That's the literal definition of sanctified. It is a decree by law to be set apart, different from the rest, which is why it says day, not evening and morning, because it's now all one. You worked for 6 days, and then on the 7th day, it's rested. This whole week is a unit. The whole week is a unit. So the fourth commandment is not a single day. The fourth commandment is a unit. It is 1 week. It's not just a day. The whole thing is sanctified by his official act to do good work for the 6 days. And on the 7th, he's set apart by his own example. We are to do the same as his image bearers.
It's not talking about the day or the holy day that's being instituted here, but rather an action that's being done on the part of God. It's the word Sabbat, which is different from Shabbat. And so it's the verb Sabbat, which is different than Shabbat. Just bring about very clearly that God he ceases, he's finished all of his creation. And the work that he's doing here now on the 7th day, which is not really a work, but the action that's happening here, is he's finished. He's ceased. He has brought an end to all of his work. And this is not because he just completed some tiresome labor and now needs a rest like what we see in the Decalogue. This is a sabbath. This is an action on God's part.
Yeah, correct. God doesn't need rest, correct. Correct. It's almost as if the act of creation and the creation narrative was for our benefit. Correct. It was for our benefit, dude. Yeah, like why aren't you understanding that? The Sabbath is for our benefit. Also, working 6 days a week is to our benefit. You know, working wasn't a burden. It was established before there was sin. And then after sin, it became burdensome. Yes, correct. But so it's like, dude, man, the Sabbath itself was made for our benefit. God did it for us like a good parent. He leads by example, not a hypocrite. He showed us how it's done, even though he didn't have to, but he did. It's because it was for us. Now he says, go do like I did. And Jesus says the same thing. Jesus says, I cannot do anything apart from my Father. I can only do what my Father has shown me. What I have seen my Father do. That's what Jesus says. What I have seen my Father do, I also do. Okay. Second Adam, last Adam, perfect Adam, final Adam. I'm picking up what you're putting down. What did your Father do in creation? On the seventh day, he ceased from his creative work, and so shall you.
To say, I'm done, I'm finished, it's over.
Hey, folks, I just wanted to take a moment away from my Sabbath preparations to share a little bit about the Sabbath from the book of Genesis. And I'm going to share my screen with you, share just a few thoughts. Don't have a whole lot of time, but I hope this will be productive and valuable to you. Let's start off by going to the book of Hebrews, chapter 4. And what I'm going to share with you here is from the Peshitta, which is the Syriac version. It gives us an idea of how the folks.
So just to answer this question, I don't know if they're trying to make the argument that the seventh day is forever and therefore you can have a Sabbath any day you want. This eternal Sabbath is a new concept, but it is the argument that came from Miles Kettleson and Sam Shamoon that actually inspired my Hebrews 4 sermon. That's on my channel, and it inspired me to actually start my channel. It was literally this argument, this ridiculous argument that the seventh day, because it doesn't say evening and morning, therefore proves that there's no Sabbath. And it's like, guys, how many times does your dad need to tell you what makes a day before you understand? And don't you get that the seventh day means it's complete? So like everything that was done is now complete. So this is for your understanding that we are at one, like that is the whole purpose of the seventh day. That's why we look forward to the return of the seventh day. That's why I do believe that the Seventh-day Adventist Church name is inspired. Like it's brilliant. I don't think the people that came up with that name, I actually don't think they realize that it's brilliant. I think they do claim that it was inspired, but I do think it's inspired because Seventh-day Adventist means the seventh day, not the Sabbath day. Not the Sabbath day. My wife can tell you. My wife can tell you. She was there. Let me tell you the story. This is long before I aligned myself with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I was already keeping the Sabbath. But as I was sitting in my backyard, it wasn't my backyard yet. This is before my wife and I got married. But this was sitting in her backyard with her friends. And I was like, guys, if you guys are so focused on the Sabbath, why are you guys called Seventh-day Adventists? Why don't you call yourself Sabbath-day Adventists? If that's really the point you're trying to drive home, then why don't you call yourself Sabbath-day Adventists? You know, we went back and forth. We hee-hawed or whatever. And it wasn't until much later, like they didn't really have an answer for it, right? It's like, oh, it's the story, this was the name that they were inspired to whatever. Okay, great. But then years later, it actually came to me during a set, like when the sun was setting, it actually came to me. I was like, oh, no kidding, it's seventh day, because the seventh day is not the Sabbath. The seventh day is the perfect day in creation. That's why you're an Adventist. As an Adventist, you look forward to the return of Christ to restore us as it was on the seventh day in completion, because the seventh day means complete. And so when everything is made anew, right? When there's a new heaven, a new earth, and everything is restored, then everything is complete again. It's at one with atonement. I was like, oh, it's like this name is inspired. Like that's the entire biblical narrative in a single name. Seventh day Adventist. You're looking for the second coming of Christ to restore you back to the seventh day. And in that preparation of looking forward to Christ, we keep the Sabbath day. And we also keep the Genesis diet, or we look towards the benefits of the Genesis diet, so on and so forth. It's like, what, like how can you not appreciate the genius of that name? I mean, no wonder why the organization decided to trademark it and sue everybody to oblivion who tries to use it. I gotta poke at them a little bit, right? But the name is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Anyways, not to detract from what Pastor Morgan's trying to get at. And then I'm going to play the video clips that I have from Miles and Sam Shamoon.
Folks in the early church understood Hebrews. There's a debate as to whether the Peshitta precedes the Greek version or it follows it. But even if we don't have it as the first version and the Greek was the first explanation in Hebrews, it still gives us light as to how the early church saw this. So, as it's talking about the rest here, let us fear, therefore, lest while there stands the promise of entrance into his rest, according to what he said about Shabbatah, the Sabbath, God rested on the seventh day from all his works which he had made. So notice that in this version, it actually adds in not just the seventh day, but the Sabbath, because they understood that that's what he's talking about. I don't think anybody has any real question that that's what he's talking about. Now let's switch over here to the Hebrew of Genesis chapter 2. And I'm going to start out here, looking at it here with you. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Now, I want you to notice here, this is the Hebrew, and of course you read Hebrew from right to left. I'm not going to read all the words here, but I have highlighted one word, and that is Vayashabat. Vayashabat, Bayom. And Yom is day, Hashabi, which is the seventh. So the day on the day, the seventh, he rested. Now notice the word here. It's Shabbat. He Shabbated. He rested on the seventh day.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going down the same path I was just seeing. If you're doing the thing, if you're verbing the thing, then the thing must exist. Otherwise, you can't verb it. I can't anti-gravity. I can't anti-gravity because anti-gravity doesn't exist right now. But someday, if I'm anti-gravitating, then anti-gravity exists. If you're doing the thing, if you're verbing it, then the it exists.
So the question is, does the book of Genesis include the Sabbath? Well, I think this is kind of a linguistic false argument
semantic.
to say
Yeah.
that the Sabbath is not there? Because what makes this day?
Yeah, have you seen did you watch my 9-hour video about that? Not to derail the thing here. Hold on here, watch this.
Which is different.
Right. Let's go to live. Did you see this? Yeah, thanks. Did you see my 9-hour video? So the last time, where is it? Is it this one? False teachers, right here. Okay, so if you want to know why, I mean, this was it. Basically, I spent 8 hours. Here, right? And so I gave you all the timestamps. See all that? Basically, what happened? Not all of it, but almost all of it. I went through this and timestamped it. You see that? Basically, what happened was they kept misrepresenting the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I was trying to get them to understand that William Miller was not a date setter. He gave a range, and he was hesitant on the range already. And then some other guy came in and basically convinced him on a date once his range expired. And that's what I was just trying to tell these guys. Like, guys, the Seventh-day Adventist Church acknowledges date setting is not ideal. And it wasn't set up that way. Jehovah's Witnesses date set. And they keep mixing up what Jehovah's Witnesses believe with what Seventh-day Adventists believe. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus came down spiritually, like in 1912 or something, I don't know what it is. Who cares? And so that, like, I couldn't get it through their head. Like, they just didn't care. And so basically I spent 9 hours arguing with people. That was the last time I'd been on his channel. So if you want to see all that, and he kept saying, and what's his name? Chris was like, "You're freaking out." Guys, dude, if I'm freaking out, I get quiet. My wife will tell you. She has awesome stories. If I'm freaking out, I get focused and really quiet. That's how you know I'm freaking out. When I'm acting cray like this, it means I'm having a good old time. If you hear me like doing this, I'm definitely not freaking out. It means I'm feeling overly confident, maybe. But if you hear me get quiet, then we got an overly focused. That's how you know I'm freaking out. Anyways, back to the thing here.
The Sabbath. It is the fact that God Shabbated. He Sabbathed on that day. He rested. So God's rest, as we found in Hebrews chapter 4, God's rest is what makes the Sabbath the Sabbath. Linguistically, it just makes good sense. When somebody takes a sleep is a noun, but when they sleep, they take a sleep. When you
So, I didn't watch Pastor Morgan's explanation. I'm just glad him and I are saying the same thing. Yeah, if you're sleeping, then that means sleeping. That means to sleep exists. That means sleep exists. The thing sleep exists. So if you're Sabbathing, then the Sabbath exists. Like, you can't, dude, bro. This is, yeah, it's a semantic argument. Like, you're totally missing what God's trying to teach you here. He's trying to teach you, because I did this, you should do it too.
take a run, you are running. Those keywords, those words are linked together.
That's what I said.
The verb and the noun are the same. And
Correct.
It's even stronger when we go to the New Testament, when we find the word for the rest in Hebrews 4:9, it says sabbatismus, which means a Sabbath observance or keeping the Sabbath. And that is how the verb was used.
Sabbatismos literally means Sabbath keeping. So tismos in the Greek actually means keeping. In a literal direct translation, which who knows why the translators aren't using the literal translation and instead of saying Sabbath rest, which is kind of, that's like saying free grace. If I say Sabbath rest, right? That's like saying free grace. Yeah, grace is free, dude. Sabbath is rest, dude. So why did the translators use Sabbath rest and not Sabbath keeping? Why do you think they did that? I don't know.
Noun was used in the Greek-speaking world, and we can bring up many examples of that. So the question of whether the Sabbath is in Genesis is hypothetical because we know it's there. God rested. That's what makes it the Sabbath. If we have any question about that, we just go to Exodus chapter 20, or let's go to Exodus chapter 31. And in Exodus chapter 31, verse 17, it is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested. Okay, now let's go over here and let's go to the same verse in.
Yeah, the issue with going past Exodus 20 is you're seeing things being added. So basically what happens is God lays the cornerstone, right? So God speaks the commands to the people were afraid. So then he writes it, and when he writes it, right, the people were disobedient, and then Moses breaks it. So then God has Moses do it himself. I think this whole thing is an allegory, and I'll explain in a second. So then he writes it again. It's written again. So then they start setting up everything, and now we don't know where the 10 Commandments went, right? The 10 Commandments disappeared. Now written on our heart. And I think that's actually an allegory to what exactly happened, right? So God wants to speak to us. God wants to give us guidance without the written law. And we're too afraid. We're too stiff-necked. We don't want to listen to him. So God's like, okay, fine. Then I'm going to do something miraculous for you. He does something miraculous for us. And yet we go to idols. We're disobedient. And so by our sin, the 10 Commandments get broken. By our sin, Jesus was crucified. You see? And so I see this allegory as if Christ comes down being the miraculous, perfect moral character of God, the Father himself. And it was by our sin he was crucified. And so what happens is the 10 Commandments, we don't know where they went. They're gone. Well, we don't need the 10 Commandments anymore, right? The Holy Spirit is what's. So now God's speaking. What was the original intention is God speaking to us, guiding us. That's what he wanted the whole time. So it was by our disobedience, God went through, like, fine, if you guys want to do it this way, we'll do it this way. We all know how this is going to work out, but let's do it. I mean, how many people do you know? Like, if you're a parent, I think you've experienced this. We're just okay. All right, see what happens. 12-year-old. Let's see how it goes. Watch what happens. I mean, if we experience this in our familial relationships, how much more is God, the Creator, doing this with us to give us that understanding, right? And I actually see that with the 10 Commandments. I see the 10 Commandments as the same allegory as how Christ came and was broken by our sin, and thus was replaced with nothing. It was effectively the Holy Spirit is now written on our hearts. Those who are going to obey are going to obey, regardless if it's written or not. So we'll keep going there.
The Hebrew language. For on that day, God rested. Hashabayim, the seventh day, God rested. Shabbat. There's the Shabbat right there. He rested. Shabbat. Now, if you're going to quibble over the dagesh, in Hebrew, you make like a double sound if you put the little dagesh. That's a little dot in the middle of the consonant that doubles it up, and that makes a double B sound. Well, for the noun, the difference between this verb and that noun is just the dagesh, the little dot. It's pronounced indistinguishably, but that's the only difference, because they are related terms. So God rested on the seventh.
Yeah, and here, I'm glad he's going through this, but like nobody disputes this. It is a semantic argument, and it's ridiculous. So I just wanted to drive home, like, and I wanted to show that he's not making this argument. So let me bring back the original. Let me bring back the original thing I had up here. Where did it go? Oh no, where did it go? Uh-oh. This guy. Yeah, so let me get rid of let's do this. So if everybody is not aware, what is actually happening in creation, again, we see a separation. God is describing the separation with darkness, right? And he brings, and then here comes light. So we see darkness and light, which is the evening and then the morning, right? And that's an allegory to us being without God, right? Does that make sense? You see, like without God, without Him, we're in darkness, and God is light. So we see that light enters hey, thanks, man. And maybe I'll put the collection together and post a link. So basically what you see though is like a separation between light and dark, and we know that ends up creating a day, but the day doesn't even exist yet because the sun doesn't exist. So God is establishing a literal fact before the literal things even exist. Let me repeat that. We don't have an an earth and a moon and a sun to establish things yet. That wasn't until later. Right here, you see it on the fourth day, lights in the heaven to divide day and night, evening and morning. So you actually have this time schedule being set up after the first day for our benefit. And so we go through this, we see heaven and earth, we see dry land and sea, right? Again, a separation. We have the birds in the sea. Again, birds in the air, right? Animals in the sea, right? And then we have animals, obviously. You have man and woman. Man and woman. Man is separate. Man was alone. And man noticed that he was alone. So God didn't command him that he had to get married. No, he showed him by his creation that he was alone. So man noticed by God's example that he was alone. And so by God's example, Adam knew he was supposed to have someone. And so God made woman. And then so man and woman become one. And so when you pair all these things together, by the seventh day, everything is complete. Everything is at one with God. It's at atonement. That's why it doesn't say evening in the morning, because the separation doesn't exist anymore. All of creation's separation is done. Everything was at one. And so that's exactly right. There's no sun. And the plants were created before the sun. It's very true. And so that's exactly the point. That's why the seventh day does not have evening and morning. There is no more separation. Everything was made, separated for his purpose. And now that it's complete, it is one. This is exactly how we're supposed to understand each other. We are all individuals in the body of Christ. We are all organs, we are our cells, we all have a part, but yet we are one. This is the concept. This is the concept that Jesus is driving home when he comes and he's like, look, him and I are one, and let them be with me in one. Like, guys, it's about being separate for your purpose, being apart for what you are supposed to do, but yet being one in unity and purpose. And so if you're going to sit there and you're going to say, oh, it doesn't say evening and morning, as if that's a bad thing. It's like, no, that is exactly why it says day. Because that day represents the perfect moment of completion. And every single day, you get to live out your Edenic command to be fruitful and to multiply, subdue the earth in his image. But on the seventh day, as God showed you, set apart. All right, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on to the, and then we'll finish this up here. It's been an hour, so let me do the SDA. SDA's not prepared.
I don't want to misrepresent their point.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but this is from a couple of years. It doesn't show you right here, right? Look at this. Sabbath is Saturday. Read your Bible. Yeah, I know that. I think that person was talking to this person, right? Sam says every day is God's Sabbath. So this is a long time ago where Miles Kettleson, which if you don't know this is one of the funniest clips I've ever seen in my life. Miles Kettleson is trying to argue that God 7th day is different than man's 7th day. And so our 7 day starts on the first day of the week. He has this calendar where he overlaps things. And then Sam Shamoon tries to say that the Sabbath is every day because God rested on the 7th day and has continued to rest from there on. So you can access his rest whenever you want. You can choose from any tree. It's that he didn't set things apart for certain purposes. No, God doesn't do that. You could just pick from whatever you want, however you want, whenever you see fit.
Because if he's saying this is the Sabbath day, and it was instituted before Moses, and so they were observing it, well, nowhere will you find in Genesis where they worked 6 days, and then on the 7th day, they observed it and repeated the cycle. So that means if they're observing the Sabbath, that means they're observing the Sabbath.
So again, when they say there is no proof that they repeated the cycle in Genesis, that's an argument from silence. We actually do know that a 7-day week existed in Genesis. Watch this. So let me just bring that up first. Let's do this. Watch. Where in Genesis does it say a week? If I'm not sure what you mean we're in if you mean we're in Genesis, yeah, I'm just proving. Yeah, obviously, I was talking about something secular, and then I'm talking about something in the Bible, and so it's like, what do you mean, Jen? Because the context isn't the Bible, right? In this generic chat GPT, I love doing that. If you mean Genesis, Genesis 2, 7th day where God rested. No, I mean, yes, but an actual week. Yeah. 7 days. Yeah. Genesis 29 contains the form of the word meaning week. Yeah, that's right. Okay, great. So show me this right here. Where do you get a 7-day week from then? Show me for week. It's like he's acting like the book of Exodus is not tied to the book of Genesis. Again, the book of Exodus is the actual movie, and the book of Genesis is the prequel to justify why you have a 7-day cycle. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, Sam, being Catholic he's trying to, yeah, exactly. He's trying to say you can choose any day. Meanwhile, he knows that he believes that Sunday is Sunday obligation, that it's holy. What a hypocrite. And he's okay with that, because before he was a Catholic, he was a Calvinist. Coincidence? I'm telling you, everyone, Calvinism and Catholicism, two peas in a pod. Calvinism just takes original sin, just more extreme. So total depravity is Catholic original sin to its extreme. And Sunday obligation, right, is taken to the extreme, as in Christian Sabbath, because they believe that it's a literal Christian Sabbath, whereas the Catholic Church recognizes that the Sabbath is still on the Sabbath. It's just been fulfilled, and thereby by church authority, we declare that Sunday by church piety is the holy, because the church can set the holy days. Okay, fine, whatever. At least you're not calling it the new Christian Sabbath. You know what I mean? Like, they're obviously rationalizing Sunday being holy by their own authority. That is a problem. But they're not just completely contorting the Bible, trying to claim that Sunday is the new Christian Sabbath, which totally doesn't exist. Two peas in a pod. So for Sam to go from Calvinism to Catholicism, it's not a hard jump. Yeah, in the Hebrew text, the word translated is Shavah, which comes from the word meaning 7. Yeah, the week is 7. Where do you think you get a week from then? Where do you think Shavah, which comes from Shabbat, which is Sabbath? So yeah, you're right. You're right. It doesn't say Sabbath again as a repeated cycle, but we do see a 7-day week. And then Exodus, it makes it very clear. We know God works like this. This is how I do it. Do it by my example. And if you don't get it right, I'm eventually going to shove it down your throat. That's what God does. He keeps poking at you. And if hopefully you get it before he shoves it down your throat, man. It's like this. Yeah. So the book of Exodus is pretty much exclusively about the Sabbath, which they seem to be, which he's admitting is seemingly ignored in Genesis. Yeah, I think Moses is making that point. And just so everybody knows, Moses, the guy who was supposed to circumcise, because of Abraham, he didn't circumcise the young. God let him get away without circumcising people for 40 years, man. So, but we all know they were supposed to be circumcised, yet Moses didn't do it. So that's not an argument. If you're sinning and God allows you to sin, lets you to get away with it, that doesn't mean the sin is okay. That doesn't mean it's okay. It just means God is not handling that sin right now. And God ended up doing that. He brought Joshua in. Since Moses didn't get the job done, Joshua came in and he circumcised everybody before they entered the promised land. There you go. And I do think that's also an allegory, right? So Moses set the covenant and pointed everybody to the promised land, right? And then Joshua comes, returns, and then brings them into the promised land, right? By circumcision and the Passover. Then they go into the promised land. I totally think that is a biblical allegory that's intentionally set up in the Bible. Meaning, when Jesus, he comes the first time, like Moses, he sets up the covenant and he points us to the promised land. Then the Holy Spirit was sent. The Holy Spirit convicts us. That's the circumcision, right? His death represents the Passover. So by circumcision of the heart, we accept the Passover lamb and we head towards the promised land. Well, we can't get to the promised land with Moses. We have to get to the promised land by Joshua, which is what Hebrews 4 says, right? That's why Joshua didn't bring us to the promised land. That's why it speaks of another day. Yeah, and another day is Jesus coming. That another day is Jesus coming. Another day Jesus will come and he will take us to the promised land, like Joshua took them to the promised land. But when he takes us to the promised land, he will actually bring us to kah-DAHSH, actual perfect rest, kah-DAHSH. I think that's the allegory. So Moses, although Moses, goofed up, God used it, and it turns into an allegory we can use to understand Christ. And that's what Jesus says to the Pharisees. If you believed what was written by Moses, you would believe me because he wrote all about me. All right, so back to this ridiculousness, and then we'll be done here.
Sabbath of God, which is every day, not just once a week. He just made my case.
You just made.
I wish we were going to get to the Hebrews 4 section tonight. I really do, because
Yeah, me
what
too.
he says there is just, oh man, it's folks, you have to grasp this. If you
Listen to his
grasp this,
story. Yeah.
you will utterly. I brought this up to an SDA pastor a few months ago. I literally witnessed him short circuit before my eyes.
Okay, what Miles is about to say is something so profoundly stupid. He thinks that the pastor was short-circuited because it was profound. I'm going to repeat that. Miles is about to say something so astoundingly stupid, and he thinks it's really smart. It's like, no, dude. Let me make this big. Here it comes.
He didn't know what to do because he knew what I was saying was correct, but he had no way of trying to get around it because the SDA church is not prepared in this regard. He said Genesis 1 and 2 shows the Sabbath was instituted before there were any Jews. Except, Greg, you clearly don't realize that God's seventh day in creation wasn't man's seventh day. It wasn't man's seventh day. It was.
Yes, Miles. I want to go. Let me go. Can I go big screen on this? Can I go big screen? Should I big screen this? Miles. The 7-day Sabbath cycle is not man's seventh day, correct? That is exactly the point. The 7-day cycle is by God's 7 days, not our own. That's why you don't get to choose your own. That's why it's not on Sunday now. It's exactly the point that it is not man's seventh day. It has to be God's seventh day, because we come into the seventh day by God's example when he set that day apart. That is absolutely correct. So that pastor must have looked at you like you were the dumbest person on this planet. He had to have been. What you witnessed was him thinking like, you really don't get that it's not man's seventh. Like, yes, that is correct. It is not man's seventh day. Exactly. Like, exactly. All right, let's watch that again.
God's. Man was not there on day. And folks, you have to grasp this. If you
Listen to his
grasp this,
story. Yeah.
you will utterly. I brought this up to an SDA pastor a few months ago. I literally witnessed him short circuit before my eyes. He didn't know what to do because he knew what I was saying was correct, but he had no way of trying to get around it because the SDA church is not prepared in this regard. He said Genesis 1 and 2 shows the Sabbath was instituted before there were any Jews. Except, Greg, you clearly don't realize that God's seventh day in creation wasn't man's seventh day. It wasn't man's seventh day. It was God's. Man was not there on day 1, 2, 3, etc. When you point this out to them, like I said, they will short circuit. But back.
Yeah, because again, Miles, when Moses, oh, here we go. Here, check this out. Watch this. Oh, I have no idea what ChatGPT is going to say on this. Okay. I have no idea. I don't think I've ever Googled this. Sign up. No, I don't want to sign up. All right. So is it even showing up? No, it's not. Sorry. Okay. Screen here. Oh no, it is showing up. I'm just blind. Okay, I'm going to say, hey, dude, bro. Hey, dude, bro. uh, how many days passed when Moses came out of Egypt? Watch this, man. This is gonna, please, man. Dude came out of Egypt, and God declared it is His Sabbath. Watch this. Watch it. Okay. Okay. In Exodus, they leave on the 15th day of the first month after Passover. Correct. They arrive in the wilderness on the 15th day of the second month. God provides manna, tells them to gather double portions on the 6th day because the 7th day is a Sabbath rest. So the Sabbath instruction connected with manna comes about 1 month, roughly 30 days after the departure of Egypt. The creation Sabbath already existed. You see, it's not God. So it wasn't the first day or the second day or the third day or the 7th day when they came out of Egypt. No, so God told him about the 7th day. Watch this. 7th day on the 6th day. It is showing. What do you mean it's not showing? It's showing. Is it not showing? How is it not showing? Is it not showing? I see it. I see it on the screen. Anyways, back to the dealio here. Get rid of this. Oh, hey, Fisherman's Valor, you might be behind. Yeah. You might be behind, but you might have to skip to like live. Maybe you're behind on the thing. Check this out. Look. In the narrative of Exodus 16, yes, the text presents God informing the Israelites about the Sabbath in connection with the 6th day manna gathering. Where else did that happen, my friends? Where else did that happen? Where else did that happen? Can I get a 6th day of creation on God's 6th day, not man's? Can I get Exodus is literally repeating the creation narrative that God was like, hey dude, today's the 6th day before the Sabbath. So you need to do double portions. Crazy stuff, huh? So Miles, maybe you need to read your Bible. Maybe you need to realize that the book of Exodus was written as the actual story, and Genesis is the prequel, the backstory to understand why Exodus is justified. It's a summary of human history so that we understand the point of Exodus. It's instead of trying to use Genesis as an exhaustive historical narrative, which it's not. You need to understand that it has a theological point for Exodus so that we understand Jesus. And that's what Jesus says. If you understand what Moses wrote, then you would understand about me. So if you understand what Moses wrote, you would have realized that Moses was told on the 6th day that the 7th day was going to be the Sabbath, so get double portions. It wasn't on Moses' 7th day. It wasn't on the 7th day when he came out of Exodus. No, it was on God's 7th day. On his 6th day, he goes, guess what? Tomorrow's the Sabbath. You're keeping it. Amazing, huh? Yeah. The calendar, the magical calendar changed. That's my favorite one. It's like, well, so what, man? If it did change, I still keep the 7th day according to all the evidence we have that the seventh day is still the same seventh day. Everything you do has to be by faith. So it's like, even if there was a miraculous calendar change, which doesn't exist, but let's grant them that. Let's just pretend that somehow the day shifted. We lost a day, we gained a day. Let's just pretend. You will not be held accountable as keeping the wrong day if all of the earthly evidence, clearly, like the Jewish people keeping the Sabbath for thousands of years, people claiming that now the day after the Sabbath is now the holy day, right? So the Presbyterian here, Miles and the Presbyterian, the Catholics, they all believe that Sunday obligation is the day after the Sabbath. So they all know the day after the Sabbath, but no one's going to admit the day, before Sunday. No, so the day changed, but everybody thinks that the Sunday is the day after the Sabbath. Anyways, so even if you grant them that the calendar somehow got changed, it doesn't matter. All earthly evidence, we cannot be held accountable for keeping the wrong day when all earthly evidence points to the fact that we're keeping the right day. So that's what we're going to be held accountable to. So if you are clearly being belligerent to what all of God's creation is pointing to, then that's what God's going to hold you accountable to. But if you're ignorant of this because of no fault of societies or history or anything, then God's not going to judge you against that. Catholics have a word for that. They call it invincible ignorance. Invincible ignorance. Yeah. Anyways, that's one of my favorite things. Oh, the calendar changed. Well, the rest of society needs to catch up with that, I guess. It doesn't matter. It's still by faith. It's still by faith. You cannot keep the Sabbath without faith. All right.
And when Israel comes along later on and they have day 6, which is preparation day, they're supposed to take 2 times worth of manna, and because they're not going to be able to gather it on the 7th day.
He just said it. So he just said the thing I just pointed out, but he doesn't make the connection. God told him on the 6th day that this next day was going to be the Sabbath. So it wasn't on their day. And I proved it because it shows that it was about a month later. It was about a month after they came out. Then they kept the Sabbath. So it wasn't on their 7th day.
That is also Israel being taught by God, paralleling God in creation. So it doesn't even just go to the 7th day where Israel.
Do you see? He totally he's saying the thing. It doesn't make the connection. Yes, they're paralleling God. So that means God in creation said on the 7th day, you're going to take a break because I took a break. So God taught them correctly, or he taught them incorrectly.
Israel is paralleling God. They're also paralleling him on day 6, preparation day. So Jesus, as the second Adam, comes and restores not just the relationship that sinners now can have with God, but in restoring all of the creation, he restores back the right orientation that man was in prior to the fall.
And so the reason why I'm
yeah, that's obviously a different thing. Isn't that crazy? So what he's arguing, it actually shows it here. Look, Miles argues that Sunday is the original creation Sabbath. The full clip is hilarious. So this is 24, 2 years ago. I will upload the 13-minute of the spaghetti reasoning soon. I couldn't find it. I don't know if I deleted it. I had the 13-minute clip somewhere. I can't find it. But anyways, the point is what he's trying to say is that the first day of the week was actually the creation Sabbath. And the reason why is because our first day was actually the Sabbath. Because the 6th day wasn't a full day. So he's making this argument that because the 6th day wasn't a full day, it can't be counted as a day. Said no Hebrew ever. Hebrew inclusive counting is not even unique to Hebrew. Romans counted inclusively too. That's not a thing. The 6th day was clearly man's first day, whether it was a full day or not. So what? And then the second day of man would technically be the Sabbath, but his first day of actual work would be the first day of the week. So the 6th day, he was born and he gets his orientation. He gets oriented. And then the Sabbath, there was no work to do because God rested by his example. They must have rested. And then on the first day, he had to carry out his Edenic command. So the first day of the week is just like when Jesus rose. Jesus rose not on the Sabbath. Jesus rose on the first day of the week. He got to work on the first day of the week. So the new creation started on the first day. Yeah, that's consistent. The first day in creation, and Jesus resurrected, showing the first day of the new creation is beginning on the first day. Like that's crazy. That's crazy consistent. Thanks, Miles. So anyway, so let's go back to that, and then we'll close it out. We'll go back to the original video here, and then we'll just close it out. I don't know if there's any more from these two. No, there's no more, right? So again, let's just reiterate this. The whole point I'm trying to drive home is that the word hallowed is the command. If anybody asks you, where is the command in Genesis for the Sabbath? It's literally hallowed or sanctified. The word hallowed means sanctified. The set apart is from the Hebrew. Hallowed is from the Greek. That's basically where it comes from. Nobody registers hallowed as sanctified because sanctified is actually like a legal action, whereas hallowed we associate with being holy. Well, holy, not associate, that is where it comes from. Holy is to be set apart. So they're the same concept. And so that's where it comes from. God's creative action. Oh, yeah, he did. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Context is king. Yeah, not for him. Yeah, that's right. It's not about context anymore because context was not doing him any favors. Yeah, it was really funny because Sam was arguing for every day is the Sabbath, while Miles was arguing that Sunday was actually the original creation Sabbath. And so Jesus came and reoriented the 7-day cycle to the way it was in creation. And it's like, Miles, God literally taught them how to keep the Sabbath, the 7-day cycle, and had people killed for it. So if God was teaching him the wrong 7-day cycle, then I guess that proves you're a Calvinist, because only a Calvinist could justify a God that would teach you wrong, like literally teach you wrong for his purposes. And yes, if you don't know, Miles is a Presbyterian. Presbyterianism is Calvinism. So as hard as that is for me to accept, that somebody could honestly make the argument that God taught Moses to keep the wrong 7-day cycle, it is consistent with a Calvinist. They can justify God can sin because God's ways are greater than our own. And that's why I say there's two things I plead you do not be a Catholic and do not be a Calvinist. You can be a Jehovah's Witness. You can be a Mormon. I don't care. Do not be a Calvinist. Do not be a Catholic. Because those two strongly institute very deadly things. That is the church and state system, claiming that Sunday is holy and that we are totally depraved, that babies go to hell. These are all grotesque type of concepts and theological dogmas that are straight from the pit of Satan. Said Sunday was always intended as a Sabbath. Well, maybe that's where he was getting it, man. Maybe that's where he's getting it. I mean, that it's crazy. I never heard it. That's so crazy. But what Miles was saying, that the original Sabbath in creation was actually the first day. That was his whole weird graph thing. Okay, so let's go back to this image, and then I'll close out with a song. Should we go back to the garden again? That's a fun song, right? No, you know what? No, you know what? Actually, I'm going to go with the song that is about Hebrews 3 and Hebrews 4, since that is really what we're talking about. We're talking about finding the rest that God provides us, spiritually and physically, the complete rest, and that He's going to promise us to return to at His second coming. So let's go with that. I really appreciate you guys. I hope that helps out. Remember, the whole point of the creation narrative is to show that God separated things for a purpose, and on the seventh day, it's not separated anymore. It is the perfect union, and that's what we look forward to when Christ does return.
I hear you in the quiet, but I don't always stay. There's something in me turning the other way. I felt how easy it is to lose the ground, one step at a time, till I'm further than I found. Don't let me get too far from what I know is true. If I start to walk away, call me back again. If I close my heart too long, don't let it harden. If I won't slow down and I pass your rest, pull me back to where you said is best. I've tried to carry what you said to leave, turn something simple into something I achieve. But every time I come back here again, it's never about strength, it's letting you begin. Don't let me get too far from what I know is true. If I start to walk away, call me back again. If I close my heart too long, don't let it harden. If I won't slow down and I pass your rest, pull me back to where you said is best. When I reach the end and I don't know what to do, you know every weakness every trial I've been through. You are full of mercy. So I come to you.